What a bummer to be making this video already. I am 4 weeks post-op from my first epidural blood patch for my suspected CSF leak, and at this point, we can officially say that my patch has failed. I hesitate to use the word failed. It feels like such a strong word because a lot of good came out of this patch and we did learn a lot from this patch, but in terms of improvement of my symptoms and how I'm feeling, I'm pretty much feeling back to how I was before I ever got my blood patch. Now, I did have a couple of weeks of absolutely huge improvement, and the last update I gave you was when I was 2 weeks post-op. So in this video, I want to fill you in on the last 2 weeks of my life, so from 2 weeks post-op to 4 weeks post-op, and what symptoms have declined during that time that are indicators to me that my patch was failing. And I also want to fill you in on a couple of things that I completely forgot to mention about my recovery when I did that first recovery video. Like symptoms I absolutely cannot believe I forgot to mention when I made that first one. So that's the 2 goals of this video. Let's do it. Now, nerve pain. I cannot believe I absolutely forgot to tell you about the nerve pain that happened after my patch. Imagine again, if you will, my entire back full of blood. Like from here down was totally full of blood. And apparently your spinal column, your spinal cord, doesn't really like to have all of that blood up in its business. So when my doctor filled all of that with 40 milliliters of blood, it kind of got super inflamed. I think that's part of why they give you Benadryl. But what I completely forgot to mention was the reason why I went for Advil. Wow, I'm like losing my train of thought again when I'm trying to talk. This is one of the indicators that it's failing. I have all of these ideas going on in my head. When I'm upright, I have so much trouble keeping track of all of the stuff. I could film laying down, but that's a little bit weird. Okay. Let's keep going. My patch was thoracic, lumbar. Basically from the bottom of my rib cage down was all on fire. It all felt just really inflamed and irritated. And it makes sense because it's that whole spinal cord and then it's all the nerve offshoots coming out and going down your legs. And I just remember it being a really burning feeling. So I went for Advil because it's anti-inflammatory rather than Tylenol, acetaminophen. And Advil worked really well for me. And I was also increasing my intake of olive oil because olive oil is also anti-inflammatory. So just in case that helped, I was also using olive oil. That burning nerve pain lasted for about a day and a half. I remember Tuesday being burny and sore, but the Advil alleviated a lot of it. And then by Wednesday morning, I was totally pain-free. You may remember the text message that I sent my friend about the maneuver. I also had some intermittent sciatic pain on the 3rd day post-op. Right after I say I was pain-free on Wednesday, I say that I have sciatic pain on Wednesday. Okay, I was pain-free on Wednesday, but I had a couple of shoots of that nerve pain going down from the back of my pelvis. It was all just pissed off from not moving for a while. So here's sort of the roller coaster of my post-patch recovery. And then I'll tell you what the indicators are that I'm looking for in terms of symptoms. My first few days post-op was really reboundy, but then from like half a week to 1 week post-op, all the way until like 2.5 or 3 weeks, I was doing really, really well. I was great. I had phenomenal upright tolerance. I was basically upright all the time and very conversational, very smart. At around 2.5 weeks post-op was when I had my very first hints of, maybe I'm slipping back into a little bit of symptomaticness. But it really wasn't until 3 weeks post-op that I started to notice things, and the last few days especially, like 3.5 weeks to 4 weeks, I have just kind of tanked. And now, at this point, I really do feel like I'm back to baseline. I think my number of hours upright and how long I'm able to be upright before I get a headache and before I get palpitations has been the most obvious and drastic difference post blood patch. Words. In terms of indicators, that's why I feel like it's a good place to start. both before the patch and now, I can only handle about 30 to 60 minutes upright before I start to get some kind of weird symptoms. After my blood patch, it took until about 3.5 weeks post-op before I actually took a flat break on purpose. I sort of went and laid down by instinct, and I was like, oh no, oh I did it, I laid down. It was the first time in weeks that I had done that. I also went that few weeks without fainting, and then at 4 weeks post-op, I had a faint in the grocery store. I was actually just shy of 4 weeks. I fainted again while we were at the store, so that was probably about an hour into the trip. Thankfully, I had Buddy there. He did alert, and he responded with DPT, and then everything was fine. But I went a couple of weeks without getting any alerts for any kind of fainting, so it kind of sucked to fall back into that. Other indicators that I want to talk about with you are nasal drips that come out of my nose, the overall smartness of my brain, like cognitive function. I want to talk about migraine frequency and also my cardiac symptoms and how those have changed after my blood patch. So my nasal drips. We don't quite know what the fluid is that's coming out of my nose, but we know that it's related to my symptoms somehow, and I do have a couple of theories, but what it is doesn't matter. What's interesting is, after my blood patch, my nose completely stopped doing the weird drip thing. I was upright all the time, and I was not dripping. Before I got my blood patch, I was dripping multiple times per day, and now I'm dripping multiple times per day again. But after I got my blood patch, it completely stopped cold turkey. The first drip that I had after my patch was 1 week post-op, and it was after a lot of activity. I still wasn't bending, lifting, twisting, but I remember doing a lot more moving around than I had done in the past week, and then I got my first drip. Do with that information what you will. Let's talk about smartness, and this is a little bit hard for me to talk about when I'm not feeling that smart, but bear with me. Now, there is normal gen, no brain fog gen. And then there's migraine gen, super obviously brain fog, right? But then there's this gray zone in the middle where I think I'm with it, but I'm not actually with it. And right now I would probably classify myself as that. I think that I'm pretty with it. I feel like I'm understanding a lot of things, but then when I try to describe something, I feel confused when I'm describing it, and I easily lose track of my thoughts and that kind of thing. When I'm in this gray zone frame of mind, it's a lot more easy for me to get irritable with my friends and family and the people around me, because I think that I'm understanding a lot more than I am, and I'm a lot more likely to be persistent about stuff that's not quite right. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a lot easier to get irritable. And I didn't notice any gray zone area stuff happening until I was 3 weeks post-op. So that was one of the first signals to me that made me realize, like, oh, maybe my patch is wearing off a little bit, because I'm starting to have some of these weird indicators that I'm not quite understanding social situations as naturally as I have been for the last few weeks. And in fact, when I filmed my first recovery video, the one at 2 weeks post-op, I feel like even at that point, I was maybe starting to show a couple of signs of doing some memory loops when I was talking, when I was making that video. I think I sat down to film that video and really thought that I was gonna just hit it out of the park, but what you guys didn't see was I actually looped myself a lot, and there was a lot that had to be cut out during editing because I wasn't quite there. Although I was 10 bazillion miles ahead of where I was pre-patch. Now, 4 weeks post-op, I am very aware of how confused I am. It is abundantly apparent that I am not quite understanding things that are being told to me, and I'm having trouble forming very simple sentences in front of the camera, and I'm doing that where I just stop because I have so many options in my head for where my sentence could go that I just freeze. Of course, this stuff is only happening after I have a good bit. I'm stuttering. All of this is happening after I have a good bit of time upright. I am still getting some good upright time, but again, I feel like this isn't that different from pre-patch. Let me see what I was actually supposed to say right now. That I recover fast with flat time. I derail myself so easily when I'm like this. But yes, I recover fast with flat time. And I'm also getting that scalp pain and my right side droop face pain feeling, the longer I'm upright too. I'm gonna derail myself on purpose for a sec. All of this stuff became so normal to me because it was like 6 years of this stuff happening just day in and day out that I forgot what it felt like to just be upright and be normal and like walk around and not have my face be on fire and stuff. And so now that my face is back on fire and I'm starting to get the heaviness only sometimes and things like that, I'm actually learning what's normal and what's not normal. And it actually sucks that my face hurts a lot. I was really enjoying going out in the wind and stuff. That was really fun to experience. I enjoyed experiencing it. I want to go back to experiencing it. And I cannot believe all of this stuff became so normal to me for so long. This is just nuts. Let's keep talking. Let's talk migraine frequency and cardiac symptoms. I am a proud daily migrainer. I have been a daily migrainer since 2016 or maybe the beginning of 2017. Yes, I have missed some days here and there. I've had some good months where my frequency was lower, but I've had chronic migraine for many years. In pre-patch, I was having a migraine basically every single day. I have a migraine alert dog, and it was like every day we're going through the whole migraine cycle. After my blood patch, miraculously, I didn't get a single migraine attack until a full week post-op. What? I know, one of the most effective things I've ever done for migraine was get a surgery. That usually triggers migraine cycle, boom, 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 you get crazy migraines for a while. No, my body loved getting this blood patch. I didn't get a single migraine until a week post-op, and then I didn't get another one for like another week. I feel like I got maybe 3 in the last month or something like that, and that's going based off of both my symptoms and Buddy's migraine alerts. Fast forward to 3.5 weeks post-op, migraine every other day or so. And then at about 4 weeks post-op, it became daily again, and now I'm back to getting the daily migraine cycle. Last but not least, I want to talk about shortness of breath and feeling palpitating, and to me that's separate from upright time. Let me explain. Earlier when I talked about upright time, I was talking about like literally I am standing up or I'm sitting up. How much time am I standing up or sitting up before I feel like I need to lay down, or before I have my symptom onset, that crazy headache or those kinds of things? Versus the actual first symptom that I tend to get when I'm upright is a little bit of shortness of breath. And if I wait through that, then I end up starting to get palpitations. And then if I wait through that, then I start getting the headache. Then I start getting the facial droop, the heaviness, the trigeminal pain. That's when that stuff happens. But that shortness of breath, since it's one of the earliest symptoms, it's going to be the one that's the most sensitive. I wanted to point out that during the good weeks post blood patch, I was able to go literally many hours without literally anything. It's not just that I was able to tolerate the upright time, it's that I wasn't even short of breath when I was upright. During the first few days post-op, definitely. During the first week, I was exhausted. I had just gone through a surgery. But then I had a couple of weeks, like after my muscles had adjusted, where I was literally just upright and not at all feeling short of breath, not at all feeling palpitations. So I'm really excited that that potential is still within my body. And I was smart during all of that. I was able to follow things even when I was upright. So my brain bounced right back. I know that it's in there. All of the intelligence is in there and my body can stand up. I just have to give it the right tools, the right something to be able to bring that out of me. Huge change from that. Now I'm at 4 weeks post-op and I am fatiguing out after like 1 to 2 hours. I am needing to sit down or even lay down after 1 to 2 hours. And the last few days I started falling asleep all over the place. I'm still a breastfeeding mom and I can't pick up the baby, so we have a mattress on the floor so that she can walk onto it and then I can lay down next to her and I don't need to pick her up. Well, the last couple of days I have been dozing in and out. And a few days ago I actually just fell asleep on it at 8 p.m. And then I fell asleep on it the next morning at like 11 a.m. I'm just falling asleep. So that's something that wasn't happening before, or that was happening before the patch. It was not happening when I was doing really well, but now I'm exhausted again, and I think it's from losing that CSF fluid and needing to regenerate it and just feeling exhausted from having all this leak stuff coming back. And I already brought it up, but I did faint again for the first time post-patch after 1 month. What's next? I don't know. I'm in contact with my doctor. I will let you know when we figure out what we're gonna do next, but for now, give the video a thumbs up anyway. I know it's not a positive thing, but I appreciate you boosting me for the algorithm, and I will update you again when I have another update. Thanks for all your support along this crazy journey. See ya.